We spend our working years saving for retirement. There comes a point where we need to turn those savings into an income stream. How much can you take from your savings and not run out of money? Is the 4% rule still valid? Is there a magic number we can all use to figure out if we've saved enough? Evan and Todd are here. This is Wealth Wednesday. Hello, welcome back to Wealth Wednesday. Thanks for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more about our firm, cfswv.com, and please check out our YouTube channel. That's at Commonwealth Financial. Today, I'm joined by financial advisor Todd Kemple in our Wheeling, West Virginia office, and Evan Brockmeyer here in Marietta, Ohio. Guys, when we're thinking ahead to retirement, one of the most common questions we hear, how much income can I take from my savings and not run out of money? Evan, it's a deep question with a lot of variables.
Yeah, and it's those deep questions that we actually like to answer because it allows us to dig deeper into your plan and use the tools that we have to analyze your situation. But it really depends, and that's not always an answer that a client may be comfortable with because you're looking for something that's concrete and going to be a certainty. But it depends on what your lifestyle is. Depends on how well you've done over the course of time saving for retirement. It depends, ultimately what your goals are, and all those things become a factor. And our target audience here might not, be interested in this comment, but because of your proximity to retirement. But the media glorifies early retirement. You see some of those articles that say, retire at 35, retire at 45, but they don't go into the depths of, what that looks like. I mean, is that going to fit what you want your retirement to be? It depends, and it depends on those circumstances.
Todd, the 4% rule has been a general guideline for the past 30 years now. It came out in 1994, created by a man by the name of William Bengen. I can remember when people felt 6% was a good guideline, and that was, of course, during the late 90s. It has its critics, and some are now saying that 4% rule is dangerous. But you also have people, including the man who first did this academic research, saying that people can push it a little bit. Is it still a good general guideline?
Well, from a standpoint of a generic or back of the envelope type planning, I personally still use it as a starting place, Neil. And, it's interesting that's been around that long. It actually seems longer to me than 1994. But as Evan alluded to, there's a lot more details that need to be considered to really pin that down. If you're retiring early, that may be too high. If you're retiring at 70, you may be able to take more. If you're doing some rough planning, as I said, it's a good place to start. I've had some clients back in the last 5 years of the 90s. We had 20% annual growth rates plus in the equity markets, Neil, and I had some clients that thought 10% was okay. I was young, did not work out well for them, Neil. But anyway, it's the closer you get to retirement, the more you can fine tune and dig into some of this. Remember, this is a math problem. It's about cash flow, and income from all sources need to be part of that conversation. Social Security, pensions, as well as your investment income. And this next bullet point for me is the most critical one. It's expenses. What are you spending, and what are you planning to spend? And that is an area that really we need to dig into deeply. So the more detail that you have, the more understanding, the better we can prepare and dial into what that exact number is, Neil.
Evan, we're going to put a graph up on the screen that makes some following assumptions. We have a 65-year-old who's going to live to age 100. The starting amount that he has is $500,000, and we're going to assume that he earns 5.1% per year. And that's not an actual investment, and it's not guaranteed. We must mention that as well. He's going to start with an initial withdrawal of 4% or $20,000 per year, and then we're going to use a 2.3% inflation rate. Explain what we're looking at here on this chart.
Yeah, so before getting into the chart itself, I think we need to emphasize the details that you just stated, which are those assumptions. So 5% growth, 4% initial withdrawal, and then inflation, because those are some of the key things going on behind the scenes. But essentially what we're looking at here is a Monte Carlo simulation. And this is a predictor of various outcomes. It has roughly 1,000 different scenarios that it'll run based on allocation of the portfolio and what has happened historically in the market with those type of allocations. And we like to focus on the lower portion of this graph because it represents a conservative estimate, which we always would like to shoot for. The dark blue and light blue are more ideal, but we have to plan for the worst case. So dark blue line is the average performance, 50th percentile, if you will. The yellow line is below average performance, so lower quartile, and the light blue represents better than expected results, upper quartile.
So Evan, how do we use this type of tool to communicate with our clients?
Yeah, it's not meant to be a prediction of the future, but it shows how much risk you're taking in the portfolio based on what your allocation is, what your spending projections are, and it functions as a weather forecast of sorts, if you will. So if you see the probability of success number there, that basically says, you have this percentage of, severe weather or rain in the forecast. It's the likelihood that this plan is going to succeed. So, in that analogy, we want that to be as close to zero as possible. But if you look at it on the flip side, probability of success, we want to drive that as high as possible. So, the important thing with this is the more information that we have and the more accurate that information is, the more realistic that this simulation is going to be, because ultimately it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So the better information we provide, the more accurate this simulation is going to be.
Absolutely. Todd, let's expand on this a little bit. Here's the same person, but let's push the spending to 5%, starting at $25,000 a year instead. The numbers change dramatically, don't they?
Yes, this guy's going to get wet probably, Neil. Pushing the withdrawal rate higher puts a lot of stress on the ability to not outlive his assets. And that's a key issue. If things go very well and he's fortunate to have strong tailwinds behind him, then that withdrawal rate's not going to be an issue. It's just not going to be the same problem eating into the principal. However, living a long time is a significant risk, and the graph shows that the failure by age 90 in this case. Will that person live that long? We all don't know, but if they live beyond that, it becomes problematic. I also want to put a plug in here too, that this is why this needs to be looked at on an ongoing basis. Because you start forecasting these trends out long term, you can start to catch situations where maybe that spending needs to be dialed back some, Neil, as that life expectancy extends beyond what a person might think. I know, Neil, you've had it too, I'm sure. Clients say, oh, I'm not going to make it to age 90. And okay, so then I like to ask, well, how long do they think they're going to live and what their reasoning for that is? But given that mortality projection, we have to look at that and the impact to that withdrawal rate and the overall loss of income potentially.
Yeah. So, if you know you're going to live to 88, you can get a much better success rate on that. But planning, and for a lot of people, planning to 100 is overkill. But anytime we're living longer, that really puts some extra stress on things. And it's kind of a combination. It's codependencies, if you will. Evan, you mentioned something earlier. This is not a tool for predicting the future, but more of an idea of showing the risk you face when determining your spending levels in retirement. How can people effectively use this to guide their decisions?
Yeah, I think this is one of the best tools that are available to analyze what your future looks like. And I think for some folks, this can even be a wake-up call of sorts to see this projected out over time, because you can get so focused on the now and the near term, that you lose sight of what the impact of that is 10, 20, 30 years down the road. So being able to see something like this and step back and look at it from a 30,000 foot view, big picture perspective, it really translates into what you need to do now to set yourself up, from how much risk am I taking to how aggressive can I be, and do we need to change anything now, or do we just need to fine tune in the future? So this is really the core of what we do and really enjoy doing for clients.
Todd, we're going to finish with you. This is a general example, and we want to keep things fair and balanced. What can you share?
Well, to kind of end where we started, I don't feel the 4% rule is bad, Neil. As we said earlier, it's a place to start. All the issues that Evan has mentioned are all part of this conversation. The more you reach beyond that base 4%, excuse me, the more risk you're going to face that you're going to run out of money. So what are those variables? Let's restate. There are the returns, expected returns, your health, your spending habits, and we just had a show about go-go, slow-go, and no-go phases of retirement. If you haven't seen that, go back and look that up. And I've got some clients that have spent more in their early years of retirement, Neil, while they were more physically capable of doing travel, for instance, than maybe what they do later in retirement. The key thing to understand here is the level of risk you're facing. And we talk about running out of money, but literally they're not, excuse me, they're not destitute. They're on Social Security or any pension plans as the only source of income. So you have to be careful about what that rate of spend is and make adjustments. I relate to my clients when they're looking at retirement that when they were working on a regular basis over the course of their career, there were times they had good years, right? We were able to splurge a little in a particular year. And then there were some times where things were a little bit tighter and you had to delay making a purchase or back off. And I say a lot of times in retirement, that same kind of behavior or life's actions, if you will, still take place, but it maybe is more driven not by so much your work or career path trajectory. It is more impacted by what the markets are doing that could cause you to splurge or have you to kind of delay or rethink some of your spending. But the last bullet point here is something that I want to always focus on, is that you got to keep updating this. It's not a one time and you're done type of event. So does that help, Neil? Is that what you're looking for?
Absolutely. I think is some excellent points and things that we're trying to do every day with our clients. So let's finish with something fun. And unfortunately, last week we had some technical difficulties and these things didn't come out, but we were talking about bucket list items and how they differ based on age and interests. And Evan, you're probably 30 plus years away from retirement. What's on your bucket list when you think about retirement?
I guess bucket list and retirement are two different things. Bucket list, I think the ship sailed for playing in Major League Baseball. So that was not going to happen, but I think I'd like to hit all the Major League ballparks. I've hit 17 or 18 of them. I've got a handful left to go, and that would be a good one to set my sights on, and then hit a few more continents than I have just yet. Haven't got out of the country much. So,
yeah. Todd, retirement's closer for you. You got any big things that you're going to try to accomplish?
Yeah, I've got several different car-related events I want to attend. That some of those are a whole week in length, and I can't allocate that kind of time now while I'm working, Neil. And the ability just to play with some of my cars and drive them more frequently than I do would be part of what I'm going to be doing later on. So,
good deal. Good deal. Guys, thanks for joining me today. If you have questions about your situation or you would like to connect with one of our financial advisors, please visit cfswv.com. We thank you for watching. Have a great day.